first thing you have to do is you have to have work. If you don't have work, you're not going anywhere. So you can put a shingle out, it's meaningless unless you have cases and you have clients. So the first thing you have to do is make sure that you have those cases, that you have those clients, that you have a way to get business, which means you got to be out there. You got to always be on. You always have to have your makeup. You always have to be dressed. You always have to be ready to meet that person who's going to give you that great case, that terrific reference. That's the most important thing. Everything else is going to come, but you got to look for the business. You must have that. So what was my transition from being a plain lawyer to running a firm? It really happened later than 1991 when I opened my own office. I was a trial attorney. I tried case after case after case. I would finish one case and I would just pick a jury on my second case and go ahead, prepare a case and keep on going. And that's how I was operating, and that's how the attorneys in my office operated. We were a trial firm and we kept on going. In about 1996, I was on trial in front of Judge Jerry Held in Brooklyn, and I had tried many, many cases in front of him before. But at this point, I had had my own office for about 5 years, and he said to me, "Michele, it's one thing to try a great organized case. It's another thing to have a great organized office." And his remark really hit home. And I thought about my office and what that meant. Was my office organized enough? Yes, I can organize one case and push it to trial, but I had many more than one case. I had many, many cases. How do I organize everything? How do I get all my cases up to the same level as that one case I'm trying? And what happened was I stepped back and I reorganized my office. And that's what I think made the hugest difference in my practice, because it gave me insight into who I wanted to hire, who I wanted to keep, how I wanted to train my people, how I wanted them to view my clients, what kind of cases I wanted to keep. Because many times before that, somebody would call me and I'd say, well, it's not a great case, but I feel bad for them, I take the case. And of course you couldn't do well with cases like that, and the client would be very, very disappointed. So I really reorganized from bottom to top, and I think that's ultimately what made me very, very successful. So I've always read a tremendous amount, and I love biographies. In the 7th grade, I read a biography of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, written by John Gunther. Roosevelt in retrospect. And there was something in that book that has stuck with me all my life and that I've taken as a precept for how I live my life and run my business. FDR was extremely flexible, especially during World War II and the Depression. He would try new programs, and if a program didn't work, he didn't fall in love with his little darling. He executed it, threw it out, and started again. And I try to follow that exactly. So I'm extremely open to trying new things. I look for new ways to run the office, to deal with my clients, to deal with my staff, to try cases, to organize ourselves. But you know what? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not married to it. I don't feel a personal sense of being vested in it. I'm going to get rid of it and move on. And that's how I've dealt with it. And I think it's really stood me in good stead, because I see people who get entrenched in an idea and they just are not flexible enough to realize that that idea stinks and they got to move on to new things. I was always into sports. And when you're into sports, you want to win. You're not playing to lose. And there's that very famous Vince Lombardi statement that it's not whether you fall down, it's whether you get up. That counts.
That's right.
And that's what I always believed as a kid. That's what we believe, maybe on my little block in Brooklyn. That's how I grew up. And I also believe something else. We all have deficits, we all have problems, and I was a pretty shy kid, and I didn't like being shy. And in high school, what I did to overcome my shyness was I joined the debating team. So you can't be shy and debate.
No,
and I eventually ended up as the vice president of the debating team, and I went all over debating because, again, I really believe that if you have a problem, you got to work on overcoming it, that you got to stand up. You can't sit there and sit down. So I decompress when I come home from work. That's the first thing I do. I put everything behind me, and I read the newspaper, I hang out for half an hour, I like to hear what's going on in the world because you never know where your next great idea is going to come from. I speak to my kids because they're in tech, they always have great ideas. So that's how I rejuvenate myself in the first place, in the short run. In the long run, I give back to the community, and I always, always have. That I think I'm blessed, I'm lucky, and I feel that there are so many people in the world who need help, and why not? I'm here, I can do it, so I do it. And I think that's tremendously rejuvenating.